Today on CHGO Blackhawks, we welcome draft prospect Porter Martone, future Blackhawk. Perhaps. We'll also talk about the Cup Final, finish off your mailbag questions, and address some interesting comments by Gary Bettman. All that and more coming up next on CHGO Blackhawks. Happy Tuesday. Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks podcast. I'm Jay Zawoski. That's Mario Tirabassi. Joey is here running the show for you today. We've got a big one, mailbag wrap-up, Stanley Cup Final conversation. Gary Bettman speaks, but first we're going to welcome NHL Draft prospect Porter Martone to the show. Before we do, make sure you hit that like button for us. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube page, and if you're listening on the podcast, make sure you're following or subscribed wherever you get your podcast. We appreciate it. Porter, thanks for taking some time out, man. Looks like you're in a very tropical location right now. Where are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm actually in my my aunt and uncle's backyard up in Toronto right now.
All right, so not nice. So tropical, but
yeah,
it's got a good vibe.
The palm branches give off the warm weather vibe.
Yeah, they make it very nice back here. So it's nice to spend some time back here in the backyard.
Nice. Well, the NHL Draft Combine just wrapped up out in Buffalo. Have you taken some time to kind of decompress from all that and maybe recover from some of the testing you guys had to do out there?
Yeah. Saturday we finished up the testing, and then I went back to Peterborough for Saturday and Sunday. Kind of relaxed there with my parents and my family, who I haven't seen in a bit. And then I was back up in Toronto Monday to start training and kind of get my summer program started up.
So what does that consist of? What's your summer program like? What's a day for Porter Martone?
Yeah, so usually working at around 9:15. I've been training at the gym. It's going to be my third summer now. It's kind of through like my agency, and it's a great gym up here, Junction Performance. So I'll get a workout in there, and then usually right now probably only 2 times a week I'll be skating. Just kind of with a group through the gym. It kind of consists of skill skating, power skating, some smaller area games, and then I like to golf. Hang out with some buddies that I have up here. So I'll probably like to hit the links probably once a week. But yeah,
once a week. That's pretty nice.
Yeah. Whenever I have some spare time, trying to find a tee off time.
Yeah, no, that's good. I wish I could do that as well. So you had a pretty big season this year for your draft year for Brampton. Like, how would you kind of characterize how the year went for yourself and setting yourself up for now looking like a guy that could go in the top 5 of the draft?
Yeah, it's been a pretty exciting year. You looked up for this draft season since you're a little kid, and just being able to be in such a great organization with the Steelheads was amazing. Coming this year, I get given a leadership role, was named captain. So I just wanted to come this year, and we had a very strong team, and I just wanted to go and help and give my team a chance to win every single night, and that's what I try to do. I think I developed a lot as a player, just not on the offensive side, but as my whole game, and I really found that I developed kind of all areas of the ice when I did go over to the World Championship with the men and played with them. It's a big difference, but it was pretty cool to spend some time with them at the end of the season. But yeah, overall it was fun. I got to represent Canada at the World Juniors at the World Championships, and then had a really good season with the Steelheads too. So it was a blast, definitely in your draft season.
So a lot of players say the biggest challenge from going from junior to pro is the speed of the game. Right. Was that the biggest change you saw when you were playing against the pro players and playing with the pro players?
Yeah, I mean, definitely when you go up with a higher level, their plays are going to be made faster, and it's going to be different. But I felt like I adjusted just fine. Being able to play 2 predetermined games with celebrating, connecting on a line, I felt like we really found some chemistry there, and we're being made plays and created offense. And then when I got into the tournament, it was good too. You're playing against Sweden, Denmark, some high NHL players on both teams, and it was fun. Got to go out there and line up with Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, all of them. But yeah, like you said, it does get faster. But that's when I realized, these are NHL players, but you can't play with them. I felt like I kept up with the pace fine. Definitely, I have lots of room to grow, and I think it's just going to keep on getting better.
I saw you told a story about Marc-Andre Fleury pranking some people. Can you tell that story to our audience?
Yeah, so I think maybe Fantilli might have said something to him just about I think Fantilli wanted to stick, and Fleury's like, okay, I'll maybe do a prank on you every day or maybe every other day. And one prank was pretty funny. It was like after a game, and Fleury wasn't playing that game, so he had some spare time on his hands before the game. But I think he sewed the bottom of Fantilli's pants, like the cuffs shut. So when Fantilli tried to go, put on his pants after the game, he couldn't get his feet through. So I know it gave a good giggle and a laugh to everyone, over there. But it was pretty cool, how Fleury handled himself. He's been in the league for so long, and he's such a historic goalie and a role model for a lot of younger players. But you see how much fun he has with it, and he always has a smile on his face, and he's great to everyone, whether it's a younger player or older player. He's just an awesome human being.
Well, not only the work on the ice with Team Canada at the World Juniors, but what was it like just kind of being around and spending some time with guys like Marc-Andre Fleury and Sidney Crosby, and kind of what did you take away from that experience and being around those living legends of the game, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. Like, just before I went, these guys are all my role models, and there's someone, people who I look up to, and I got to go over there, and you got to play with Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, Ryan O'Reilly, and Marc-Andre Fleury. So they are my role models still, but now I can consider them friends, and I got friendships with them. I still stay in touch with a couple of the guys, to this day. So it's pretty cool. Just going out with team dinners. I got to learn a lot, about the NHL lifestyle, and I got to see them really put in the work firsthand. So it was an amazing month. We definitely fell short. We didn't win a gold medal, but I couldn't put a price tag on that opportunity. It was pretty special, to go, play with the NHL players, be around them, and learn a lot of things from some of the best NHL players of all time, and Sidney Crosby. So I definitely think I got a big advantage going over there for a month, and just going to prepare me when I do go into NHL training camp and try to make an NHL team.
We had a question from our audience. I know you may have been asked this before, but who are some guys that you think you compare to in the NHL?
Yeah, I mean, I do try to play my own game, but a couple players, Corey Perry, definitely in his prime. You've seen it. He's so good, and even to this day, he's 40 years old in the Stanley Cup Finals, and he's still contributing to Edmonton. He's played on the first line with McDavid, and they definitely found some chemistry there. So, he's doing something right for sure. And then, I like the Matthew Tkachuk and the Tkachuk brothers too. Kind of the edge they play with. They're both really good hockey players as well. High hockey IQ, he makes plays. He can score goals, at the net front. That's kind of where I feel like I exceed to around there. But, they know when it's the right place to, maybe send a message or, play hard as well.
Well, we are a Blackhawks podcast, so we've been, kind of looking at where they're at number 3 and players that could fit in their system and their style. And one thing that comes up with Kyle Davidson the last couple of drafts is speed and skating. And, one thing that I think people, when they, critique your game is that, the skating is not as high level as other attributes of your game. What do you take away from hearing that? How do you work on that? And I guess how do you see yourself fitting with the Blackhawks should they take you at number 3?
Yeah, I mean, so that people do critique that about my game. It's something that I am working on too. I want to become more explosiveness, but I think I get to the right areas on the ice, just as fast. Hockey isn't a speed skating game, and I think I get to the right areas and I do that. I feel like once I get going, I'm a pretty good skater. Maybe I'm working on the explosiveness, but I also just proved it over the World Championships. I was able to keep up and play with NHL players, so I'm definitely not saying it is the best aspect of my game, but I am working on it, and I felt like when I did go over and play with the NHL players, I played with a lot of fast players. I was able to keep up and make plays, and something I could, I think I could, bring to the Blackhawks organization, just that, big power forward presence. And, I think I have a tremendous hockey IQ that I could see the ice and, you just set up players. And, that's something that I really take pride in is, being a really high hockey IQ player, that playmaking ability. But, I am continuing to work on my skating, and it's something that, I want to improve my game along with everything else. I'm not at the best, and, I'm going to keep on working every day. And, I'm never going to stop because you can never be at your best.
When you hear, I know this is a time of year where prospects are picked apart. Every part of your game is out there in print, on the internet. Everyone says, oh, he's too slow, he's too small, whatever it might be about whatever player. How does that, like, when you read that stuff, how does that make you feel? Like, does it piss you off when you're like, wait a minute, I'm not that slow. I scored 37 goals in 57 games. I'm not slugging down the ice. Like, does that motivate you? Does it piss you off? How do you feel when you hear that about your game?
Well, I mean, people on the outside can, always, criticize your game and say things about you. But you know what? I don't even listen to that. I know my ability. I know the way I play. I've proven it that I could keep up at every level I played at and at the bigger ones with the NHL players as well. So, people are going to criticize you throughout your whole career. And it's kind of it's something that, hockey players, they have that gift. You just got to stay to a positive mindset. You can do it. You can play with it. So, that's something I learned also with the NHL players. The people might criticize that, but that you could produce at that next level. You could produce in the NHL. So it's something that people are going to say that definitely. I know that I have to get better at that. So I'm not going to let other people tell me that. I know who I am, and I know the person I am, and I know what I need to do to get better.
How has the process of now that your season is over, you're leading up to the draft, and throughout the year you're talking with teams at the draft, or at the combine, you're you're getting not wined and dined, but soda popped and dined,
and chicken nuggets.
Yeah, but how has that process been? Like, how have those conversations been with other teams? Like, I'm always fascinated by that because as you guys as prospects go through this process, there's so much, like, we're talking about, like, kind of like nitpicking of your games and stuff. And what is that process like? Do you, like you said, like, do you kind of like just try and block things out and focus on yourself, or is there a lot of conversations, interviews, questions that really like kind of like break down the like person you are and player you are?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun time of year right now. It's coming back from the combine, getting ready for the draft. It's pretty cool being able to go meet all the organizations at the combine, have interviews with teams. And, just kind of, I feel like they want to get to know you as a person and just like maybe your background, where your family's from, what we were like growing up. And, you get to learn a bit about their organization too. And, kind of the culture they have there and the identity and, kind of the stuff behind the scenes that you might not just see on the ice. So, yeah, there's some tough questions in the combine, but I think it's just teams trying to get to know you, and they know the player you are. They're just trying to get to know more of the person of you, and it's fun right now. I'm just going to every day. I'm just going to try to get better. I go to the gym, on the ice, and the draft will come, and the draft, it's going to be a fun experience in LA with your family, but the draft just kind of starts your hockey career there. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what number you get picked. It's what you do with that. And I think the real work starts after that.
We saw after the combine, and the last question here, we'll let you go. We appreciate your time, Porter. You had some good things to say about the Hawks organization. What appeals to you about potentially being a Blackhawk?
Yeah, I mean, it's something special they have going on in the Blackhawks organization right now. Kind of the prospect pool they've built up. You got Connor Bedard. You got Frank Nazar. You got a bunch of players that you can see them building around. And it'd be an honor to be selected by such a great organization and a great group of people and management staff. And it's something special you can see there. You have a core group. You're going to continue to keep adding pieces, and you could really see them winning the Stanley Cup and in the times to come. And that's the goal of my hockey career. That's the biggest thing. I feel like I want to be a contributor to win Stanley Cups, and that's a big thing for me, is lifting that Stanley Cup over my head. And you could see the Blackhawks, you could see the direction they're going, you could see the young players they have, and it's something that you created there with their culture and their identity, and it's something that every kid wants to do, but it's only certain people know how to dig deep and win the Stanley Cup. So I see it. I watch a lot of Blackhawks games. You see Connor Bedard coming up through the system, and they got something special with all the prospects there. And yeah.
All right, we got one more because someone paid to ask you this. DJ wants to know, have you ever been to Chicago? If so, what's your favorite part?
Yeah, I have. I think I don't know how old I was, but I was in a spring hockey tournament there, and I played games at the practice rink, got to kind of tour the practice facility, and I got to go see the game rink too. But it's a beautiful city. The fans are very passionate. I've seen a lot of games on TV this year. It's pretty special. And yeah, I remember going there. I went to the Blackhawks shop, and I remember I got a Blackhawks hat that I wore for 3 years until it got too sweaty. But yeah, I still got the bag that the hat was in. At my house. So it's a great organization, and it's a great spot to play hockey.
All right, Porter, thanks for your time, man. Maybe you'll get a new bag and some new hats coming up here in a couple weeks.
Yes, we'll see.
All right, however it shakes out, good luck, have fun, enjoy it, and we'll see you around the rink one way or another. That's Porter Martone, 2025 draft prospect, potential Blackhawk at number 3, or maybe even higher.
Potentially.
All right, we're going to hit the break zone. Thanks, everybody, for the great questions and the great comments. Do us a favor, hit that like button. We'll be back in 2 minutes here on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping. Whether you're new, whether you're a veteran, whether you've been in the cannabis game for a long time, Sunnyside has everything you need to elevate your summer. They've got great brands like Good News and Mindy's. Those are 2 of my favorites. They've also got Cresco and FloraCal, and you walk in there, you'll feel educated. You'll feel like you know what you're getting. You'll get the experience you want. No surprises when you get home and open up your great product from Sunnyside. They are Illinois' favorite dispensary. They've got locations in the city and the suburbs, so visit sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Enter promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. Bright buys every day, only for 21 plus or Illinois MedCard holders. And for existing users, use promo code CHGO50 for 50% off one Cresco Labs brand item.
It's summer. It's hot. You're likely sweaty. And if you're sweaty, you're likely stinky. And that's where our friends at Mando Whole Body Deodorant come in to help you this summer and year-round. Mando is whole body deodorant, safe to use anywhere on your body. That's your pits, your balls, your thigh folds, your belly button, your butt's crack, and your feet. It was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal body odor was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. You can choose from a variety of scents like bourbon leather, Clover Woods, Mount Fuji, Pro Sport, and it's clinically proven to control odor better than a shower with soap alone. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, and 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and you get free shipping. And as a special offer to our listeners, new customers can get $5 off that starter pack with our code CHGO when you go to shopmando.com. Again, that's SHOPMANDO.com. The code is CHGO.
And it's time to take the temp from your trusted local experts at Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. Visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for all their special offers and money-saving coupons. That's fourseasonsheatingcooling.com. Taking the temp, we talked to Porter Martone for 13 minutes and 47 seconds, roughly. And now everyone wants Porter Martone to be the Blackhawks draft pick. It is so funny.
Yeah.
If we had James Higgins on tomorrow, people would be like, you better draft James Higgins, Davidson, you idiot. No, Martone was, what a great kid.
Yeah.
Good head on his shoulders, good answers, thoughtful answers. Easy kid to root for sure.
Yeah, I think, he's definitely one that made some good impressions at the draft combine. And, I think if you've read about him, heard interviews with him before throughout the season, you wouldn't be surprised at that level of just the character that he has, and being put into a leadership role with his junior team as a draft eligible player. Like, not a lot of kids are able to do that as a young guy, but I think you look up and down at the draft board. You look at what the Blackhawks need. He's definitely a guy that fits that need. If he wasn't just so darn bad at ice skating,
he's just so slow,
right? Like I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, Kyle Davidson has not really shut the door on it, and actually kind of sounded a little like open to the idea of like we don't have to draft the same kind of player every time we have a first round pick, but we'll see what happens if they if that's not our last time ever having Porter Martone on the show. Be happy with that as a member of the Blackhawks.
Yeah, I think, and again, thanks to Four Seasons for helping us take the temp today. We always love them. Four Seasons Heating Cooling.
Temperature is high on Porter Martone.
This guy is too blank to draft. I very rarely buy that unless it's this guy is too big of a beep to draft.
Yeah.
Or it's the kind of guy you don't want on your team.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
The players who, get red flags for character issues, the players who get red flags for like, this guy's not competitive enough. Like stuff like that is where you really start to question where they land in the draft board. But yeah, I mean, skating, strength, hockey IQ, all those things can be tweaked and improved, and you can learn things. You're not a complete hockey player at 17, 18 years old. And the same thing with, the Hagens and the size thing. He's 5'10 and a half, 186 pounds at the draft combine at 18 years old. He's going to get bigger and stronger. Like that's not Patrick Kane in his draft year was not Patrick Kane when he was in his prime.
Go look at pictures of Patrick Kane drafted.
They're all children.
Yeah, right.
Sidney Crosby.
I mean, you could see
got
too,
bigger and stronger.
Just looking at Porter on camera, there is a ton of room for physical growth from him.
Yeah, he's not a hulking guy right now.
No,
he can firm up, as Andrew Sorensen says.
As how he skates, as how he points out, skating can be fixed. That's true. And it sounds like, before we even asked him about the slow connotations, he said, I'm working on my skating, working on my explosiveness. Yeah. Like, he hears it. He understands what the knocks are against it. And, I mean, look, like it's the same thing with Connor Bedard at the end of the year. Knew exactly what he needed to work on to get better. I don't think anyone had to tell him.
Right.
I think he knew where his shortcomings lie. And from what he said, he's been working on his skating and his explosiveness this offseason. So it'll come. I think size is something that you can't teach. And it is to find a combination of size and skill is rare. And I think that's why players like Misa and players like Martone are appealing, especially when you look at what the Blackhawks have in their systems already, right? Like you've got a lot of young, speedy, shifty guys. Not to say they're all going to be, Radim Verbata playing on a perimeter just because they're small and fast.
Right.
Like Frank Nazar plays a power forward type game despite not being a power forward. Right. So it's adaptable, but Martone, from the second we started talking about this draft, has been very appealing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more than just the size. It is the passing ability, the playmaking ability, the goal output. He just, I don't know. He just very much strikes me as a puzzle piece needed for this team, and it kind of shakes out really well for them to take him at 3.
Yeah, I would say outside of Misa, Porter Martone would be the guy I would have at number 2 on my personal board for the Blackhawks, and I think there's really no wrong answer at number 3, especially if it's if it's within that group of 6-7 guys that we've been constantly talking about as this draft has approached. There's really no wrong answer. Each player has their own qualities, traits that fit what the Blackhawks could use, and would be players that you see as their ceiling contributing to competitive teams, whether it's a big two-way forward or a playmaking, guy that can play center or wing, or a power forward on the wing, or a do-it-all center who can score and be on the penalty kill, or a defenseman who's been compared to Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar. Like, all of those guys would be great for the Hawks.
Good comment from Ted, who says size doesn't necessarily mean gritty power forward either, but that can be learned too. If you read, Ben Pope wrote about Martone at the Combine, and Martone was asked about that. Like, hey, you don't play very physical. We watch you play. You're not a guy crushing people. And his point was, I'm a guy that's a playmaker and a scorer. I want to be on the ice. I'm not helping my team by being in the penalty box. Like,
right, yeah.
in the NHL, everyone takes a step down in their level of dominance in the NHL. Connor Bedard's a great example. In junior, Connor Bedard was just stiff-arming people and laughing at them and putting up hundreds of points.
Skating around
it was
everybody.
not a challenge. Mm-hmm. Everyone gets challenged and adapts their game when they get to the NHL, and I think Porter Martone is a guy who, when he reaches the NHL, will add that physical element because it's what the team's going to want from him. And it doesn't mean he's got to be out there just running over everyone that's out there. But when I say play physical, it's finish your checks when they're available, stand in front of the net, redirect pucks, block shots in the defensive zone. Like, those are the sort of things. Don't pass up the opportunity to lay the body on somebody. Lay the wood as a penalty. Lay the body on somebody but you don't have to go chasing it. It doesn't mean drop the gloves every night.
Yeah.
It just means, once again, to reference what Jeff Blashill talks about all the time, winning hockey. Mm-hmm. That's what Blashill wants from everybody, is to, when it's there, take it. When the opportunity is there to wear down your opponent, wear them down.
Yeah, and I think if you are a player that, has that size, how do you use it? Do you, how do you body position in front of the net? How do you battle in the corners? How do you, go into 50-50 battles, and are you coming out winning them? And I feel like Martone is a guy that comes out winning them on most battles, and that is just something that you build that strength, and you build that confidence, and you build that habit, and you lay the groundwork in your junior game, and then it translates up into the professional level, and if you have those habits and that style and that confidence, that all can translate. And I think habits is something that is talked about a lot with the Blackhawks and Davidson, and what he sees in both the draft prospects and as the guys get up to the professional level, is having good habits and being able to play that style and have a commitment to playing that style. And one of the things that I take away from Corey Perry's short time in Chicago is early on that season, the team was having a hard time scoring goals. Now, that's not different than later in the season and also in the seasons after Corey Perry was not here. But specifically, that killer instinct to be a scoring player. And Corey Perry was never really a sniper, right? Like, he was never really a guy that was just going to, pound one-timers or really deceive you with snapshots, wrist shots. Right. A lot of his prime and putting up, big scoring numbers was around the net. And what he's done and made a career of post his prime is being around the net, being in the right areas. And that is something that is, there can be a taught habit of that, but there's also a natural instinct to it as well. And I think when you look at some of these guys with these skill sets, and you look at Martone, like it just feels like there is some things that can be taught, like, hey, play more physical, go into battles this way, if you're how do you track pucks and stop a player in transition, things like that can be taught. But there's also, a willingness, like you mentioned Frank Nazar, like he has a willingness to get to the center of the ice and to go into battles and be able to come out, on the right end of them. So I think there's traits and habits that, you can see in some of these top guys that are just inherent and in them, that you really want to have, rather than have to like teach, like, hey, like, don't be afraid to go in there. Like, you want a guy that is going to go in there and battle and work hard.
All right, we got to hit the break zone one final time. Do us a favor, hit the like button for us. We're just at 100 likes. We love that. We got some super chats we're going to get to. Then we're going to discuss the Stanley Cup Final coming up next on CHGO Blackhawks.
Eventually.
Just like your favorite team needs a home ice advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage. Why not get it from our friends at Empire Today? They have flooring experts, dedicated flooring pros who focus on flooring every single day. No more big box stores when it comes to flooring. You want the pros instead of wandering these giant aisles, buying the wrong thing, then having to find an installer. No, it's a big pain in the butt. You want our friends at Empire Today to get you squared away correctly. That's why they're your best bet for a new floor. Empire Today lives and breathes flooring, and they will be with you every step of the way. It's a whole different ball game or hockey game, whatever. Their flooring experts bring the showroom right to your home. Pick the right flooring and the right colors for your space. See how it looks with your furniture in your house with your lazy teenager laying on the floor. How does it look? Looks good. Get precise measurements taken and have all your questions answered so there's no surprises.
Very specific.
You'll get clear upfront pricing, all inclusive, and you can schedule installation as soon as the next day with Empire Today. So schedule a free and home estimate today. CHGO listeners, you'll receive a $350 discount when using promo code CHGO. Yes, you heard that right. A $350 discount with code CHGO. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/CHGO for full details.
And whatever the sport, the app to bet it is Circa Sports Illinois. Circa Sports, sports betting the way it should be. Circa Sports Illinois has high betting limits, low holds, and exceptional customer service. You can bet on all of your favorite teams in every game this season, whether it's spreads, props, futures, or in-game. Circa Sports has it. You can fund and bet like a pro anywhere, anytime in Illinois. Download your new bookie today at circasports.com. Must be 21 or older, and if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, you or the person you know can call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, let's take a look at some of the super chats that have rolled in throughout the show. Again, if you're catching up late, make sure you catch our interview with Porter Martone from the first segment. Nico, $5, says, interested to hear your opinion on the Brady Martin hype. Brady Martin, if you don't know, is a Sioux Greyhound center. Put up big numbers with Sioux last year. 33 goals, 39 assists, 72 points in 57 games. Here is the elite prospects breakdown. When Martin gets ahead of steam, he looks unstoppable. He weaves through the neutral zone, alternating between holding the puck deep in his hip pocket and perfectly timed pushes through sticks and feet. With a seemingly bottomless bag of tricks, he regularly makes the flashy look easy. A destructive force, Martin is a uniquely heavy and frequent hitter. He slams opponents into a wall and throws them to the ice before chasing down the next victim. He battles hard, proactively wins inside position, lands heavy reverse hits, and keeps that energy in a defensive zone. He is ranked 14th in consolidated ratings, 12th by Elite Prospects, 13th by Bob McKenzie. So you can look at some of the other rankings as it goes on, but that's about where he's at. Usually, if you want to average it out, probably around 10.
Yeah, I
Brady
think
Martin.
He's definitely a guy that is, I think, a late riser in a lot of public draft boards, and I think he got a really good, across the board review from the draft combine, whether it was his measurables, his testing results, his interviews. Like, he's definitely someone who is high up on a lot of teams' boards, and he plays a style that, as we watch these Stanley Cup playoffs and you watch the final and you watch how playoff hockey is played, he's a guy that plays that style. So I think there's definitely going to be a team that doesn't let him get out of the top 10. I feel like he's going to go top 10. I really don't think the Hawks are going to take him at 3. I think there's more skilled players that also can bring that element to the game than Martin, but I think he's a very good player for sure.
Well, if you're looking at a Buffalo trade and you want to throw 3 in there.
Buffalo's at 9, yeah.
3 and 25 for Peterka and 9. I don't know.
Yeah. Worst they can do is say no.
Yep. All right. We got DJ's first super chat. A second super chat from DJ, $2, says Dylan Strome was a good comparison for Martone. I think he's a little more physical than Strome, but when I watch Martone skate, I do get some Dylan Strome vibes, and the playmaking is certainly there. A really good passer. And like, Dylan Strome is such a good example of a guy who was drafted high, never had like the huge point outputs that everyone expected him to have.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of became this journeyman. And as soon as the Washington Capitals were like, hey, you know what? We're really happy to have this guy. He's very good. Great playmaker. Exactly what we need down the middle. Decent at faceoffs. Okay defensively. And just embrace who Dylan Strome was. Dylan Strome had the best career of his life. Because he was just left to do what he's good at. And that is such a huge part. I mean, Spencer Carberry, the coach in Washington, the Jack Adams Award winner, maybe he won it just for letting Dylan Strome be himself.
That's a shame he's going to be fired in the next 2 seasons.
Well, he has to be.
The curse of the Jack Adams.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, you know, you get guys like that and you put them in the right situations. Dylan Strome, when he was here with guys that could, you know, see the ice and finish, like Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat, like, he played really well. Like, it's not hard that some guys, Dylan Strome was a 3rd overall pick and in Arizona kind of got the reputation of, you know, quote unquote bust. But as soon as he got to Chicago, played with some top tier players, he brought his game up to their level. Doing it in Washington, like, you get the right players in the right situation, the right position to succeed, and you know you can see what their actual ceilings can be. So yeah, we'll see.
All right, we have one more too. We want to get to Joey. One more super chat, I think. Oh, there it is. Young Dangle God. What about a trade for Jonathan Huberdeau, 6'2", 200 pounds, left wing, just turned 32 6 days ago. Flames most likely looking for draft capital at this point, which we have. That's a guy whose whose heart has been questioned.
Mm.
And I'm not going big on a guy like that. And I know the same has been said for Mitch Marner, but that goes with the asterisk of it's Toronto and they need someone to blame at all times.
Sure.
So I would not. Look, does he make the team better? Yes. There's no doubt about it. He's not on the top of my list, nor really near it.
Yeah, I mean, how much is left on his contract? Because he signed what? Was it 8-year deal, 7-year deal with Florida before getting dealt? Yeah, I don't.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah,
he has 6 years left at 10.5.
No, I don't think that.
Yeah, I'm good on that.
No, if I'm given that much money for that long, I want it to be someone who fits the timeline more than a 32-year-old.
And by the way, the last 3 seasons, he's only missed 5 games, 55 points, 52 points, 62 points.
It's a far cry from his 115 or whatever he had.
That's not $10.5 million.
Florida,
player.
yeah, no, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
Thanks for the money, though.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
We appreciate that very much. All right, should we get to the Cup Final?
Cup Final.
It's over.
All right. Well, so much. You're really counting out?
Yes.
Edmonton.
Yes.
Done.
They thought so. Here's the thing. The Oilers thought, while getting crushed by the Panthers, that the right thing to do and the way to really get the Panthers back was to play directly into their hands and try to get rough and tough with the Panthers. What are you thinking? What are you thinking? This game, they're going to win it in 5. Panthers in 5.
5. Wow.
They're done. What are they do? What is Edmonton doing?
They're trying to find a spark, and that's the old we're getting blown out, so might as well try and beat people up to do it. But
yes,
you can't do it against these Panthers.
You're getting blown out. You're the one team that spark should come from its offensive leaders. If you have Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid on your team, among several others that are very good, you're not really out of any game. So instead of punching and crying and taking cheap shots after the whistle, try to get back in it. Try to draw a penalty. Try to ask your star players to do star player things instead of just falling further and further and further behind in the score and then getting madder and madder and madder and have the Panthers laughing in your face. They are laughing. I guarantee you that Panthers locker room, those guys were in tears last night laughing at what the Oilers were trying to do to them.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? You're doing that to the Florida Panthers? Good luck. That is horrible. And I've been rooting for the Oilers. I wanted them to win the series. But when we made our predictions, I said, fragile Oilers, and they showed it. As soon as things got tough, meltdown city.
Yeah, I think you look at how that was handled and the team you're trying to do it against. It's not the way to go, but that is one of the oldest wells to go to in hockey, especially in the playoffs and in those types of games where that the whistles are not as at the ready as they usually are, where you're going to be able to try and get away with some things. But, got some fines coming today after the shenanigans. But, I think there is a difference in the coaching between Paul Maurice and Chris Knobloch. And I think that could have been a factor in it as well. I think that could have been a point where Paul Maurice knows his team well, and knows how to be in those situations and ride things out and not let his team get into those battles and get into that muck of a game when they don't need to. And the players are smart enough too. I mean, you have Matthew Tkachuk and Sam Bennett and Brad Marchand, like all these guys that are well versed in the tomfooleries of hockey, and they know when to turn it on and when to not engage. And that was a time where they that experience was really put into practice really well. I'm not saying the series is over. I think Edmonton really they have to treat this 2-1 deficit like they treated the 3-0 deficit last year. Like they have to feel like their back is at the biggest wall possible. Like if this is McDavid's moment to have another locker room outburst that motivates the team, it's got to be now. It can't be if you get down 3-1. Like they have to get to their best now before the series gets out of hand.
Look, you're down 4-1 going into the third. Shots are pretty even. Possession's pretty even. You've got two of the best players in the world, two of the top 5 in the league on your team. Just fight to get back in the game. That's
what they did. They tried to fight.
You know what I'm saying, though. But it's just the collapse is... What was the final total in penalty minutes?
It was the 4th most penalized Cup Final game ever. I think I saw the stat.
Oh, my God.
Edmonton had like 95 penalty minutes. It's like 160 total, something like that. Yeah, that's not the way to try and beat these Panthers. That's not how you're going to do it. It's hard to beat them skill for skill, but you look up and down that roster, you're not going to beat them at their own game, really.
So they had 8 penalty minutes before the third. The game ended with 85 penalty minutes for the Oilers.
Yeah.
21 penalties. What are you doing?
Well, that's why there's 7 potential games to play. I'm not counting out the 2 of the best players in the world, one of them at the top of the list, in a 2-1 series. I think there's still lots of hockey to play. It doesn't look great. They definitely have an uphill battle, but it is definitely not locked down from here. If they come out in game 4 and get waxed again, then for sure it's over.
I just don't see how you come back from this. And you're right. Maybe they win another game. But I'm telling you, Florida right now has them exactly where they want them. Barkov has not even made an impact in the series yet. He's going to. Do you see Paul Maurice say, what do you think about Barkov not having a point yet? He goes, yeah, we're trading him. Like, we're not worried about it. We got a 2-1 series lead in the Cup Final. We're okay.
Yeah.
And Barkov will be fine. It just... What bothers me about it is, and you're right, like that is the very typical response to a blowout playoff loss.
Yeah,
that is the traditional.
You see it 10 times a postseason.
But when you look at it in the context of this series, the high-flying Oilers were no games out of reach. They're a shift away from making it a tight game again at all times. They play that game instead of trying to just use their ability to get back in it. And they do it against the Panthers, who relish it. It's almost like they're like Thanos with the Power Stones. Like the more you resist and try to beat them at their own game, the stronger they get. And it's just like, Please. Yes. Let's do this. Let's do this rough and tumble, cheap shot, cross check, questionable hit after the whistle crap. Feed us. Make us stronger. Make us bigger and stronger. And we'll see how the series goes for you. Look, Edmonton has to come back game 4 just on fire for me to think they've got a shot. Even if they win this game, it just feels like they're already mentally beaten. That was not at all what I expected.
Yeah.
4-1 going into third. Yeah, you take an early delay a game penalty, which is not great, but then all hell breaks loose. Oof.
We'll see. We'll see. I'm not counting out the Oilers, but it's looking rough, and you don't have a solid plan in net, and that's never a good thing to have in the Cup final.
Well, that hurts too.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't know if you trust to. Is it too late to trade him?
Look for next season. It's already over.
I don't know if you trust Stuart Skinner.
Nope.
I don't know if you go to Calvin Pickard and say, "Here, you're the guy. You're our guy, Cal." It'll be tough.
McDavid do a new contract after the next season too.
Oh yeah. It
will be the biggest in NHL history.
It will be.
Before we get to Super Chats, I saw you publish the rebuild report today. You want to give that a little pump?
I mean, we're in the thick of it with draft coverage, so going through players that I think would make a lot of sense for the Blackhawks for their type, Kyle Davidson's type, what they need, positions that they could fill in the prospect system with their second and third round picks. Second round picks right now looking like number 30. I think it's 34 and 62, and then they have the third round pick at number 66 overall. So you can check that out at allchgo.com. If you're a diehard, you will get access to that. If you're not, sign up to be a diehard, and then you can get access to that.
And a free shirt.
A free shirt, and all the other perks that come with being a diehard, all the wonderful things that our CHGO diehards get. We've talked about, the number 3, decision at number 3, decision at number 25. They've got some really good players in the, I want to say, later rounds, second and third rounds, but just as important as it is to nail your first round picks, it is to nail those later round picks, because you could have some difference makers found in the second, third, fourth, fifth round. They're just not the sexy ones that are first round talents come draft time. All
right, couple mailbags left. We got about 10 minutes to go, so why don't we fire those up, Joey, if we've got them ready? Or are we going to just go right to the Discord and do it?
Right here.
Speaking of being a diehard, if you want early access to our mailbag stuff, diehards get priority.
Yes, they do. This one is from our Discord from Blue Tobias. Assuming there are no additions on the blue line this offseason, who do you think are the top 7 the Blackhawks will start the year with?
Ooh, so if they're not picking up a defenseman, that's telling me that they think both Renzel and Levchinov are ready. You agree with that? Or at least one of the two?
At least one of them.
I think they're pretty convinced Renzel is ready right now. And as Frank Saravalli has said for months, he might not play a single AHL game.
Yeah, his small sample size was very promising. My inkling is that he makes the NHL team right away. I think it's a different situation than what Frank Nazar had, because there's less roster spots for defensemen, but there's also less, assuming no moves, as the question says, there's less people in front of Renzel that I think I would say edge him out. So
it almost feels like keeping him down, it would almost just be like, well, we should because he's young.
Yeah, which, I mean, if he plays 20 games in Rockford and then has 20 points and is lighting it up and you just bring him up to Chicago, it's essentially what you did with Frank Nazar. If he goes out and does the same thing, that's completely fine. Like, there's really nothing negative to that other than, we don't get the satisfaction of Sam Rinzel, day one NHL player, and he doesn't get that. But as long as you're in the NHL, it really probably doesn't matter at what point you get there as a 21-year-old.
I think I'm going Vlasic, Rinzel, Murphy, Kaiser, Del Mastro, Allen, and Crevier, I guess, would be the 7th. I don't think they mind Crevier sitting for a few games.
So,
like, if Levshinov's here, he's going to play every game.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they might give Levshinov a few more games in the AHL than Rinzel.
No Shea Weber?
That's true. There's a Shea Weber factor, which we are not considering.
No, I think that's a good group for sure. Vlasic, Murphy, I think they're guaranteed to. They're guaranteed in. I think Rinzel does make it. I do like Kaiser as well to start the season here. Del Mastro. Levshinov, I think, is here.
I hope so. I'm rooting for Levshinov and Rinzel to play the whole season here next year.
Yeah. TJ Brody, I don't believe, is around.
Yeah, Frank Saravalli, as Giggity's mentions, did his buyout candidates list, and TJ Brody, I believe, was the first guy on the list and was called a stone cold lock to be bought out, which we...
I mean, when you sit for the final 30 games of the year.
Hey, Joey, can you cue up the first post-game show from last year where I believe it was the first segment of the show when I said TJ Brody's going to get bought out? I'm kidding. But I said it I said it in the first segment in game 1 of 82.
The Utah game?
Yes, the TJ Brody's getting bought out.
Let's go back and watch it.
Yes, I did. I know for sure I did that.
Yeah. I mean... Yeah, we knew as soon as that contract was signed, it was probably unnecessary, and it was a year too long. I was willing to give it some time, but yeah, it was evident for you first game.
Yeah,
but I think
enough.
I think it was very clear that there was no coming back around, finding it, what he had lost in Toronto when he was here. So.
And I will say, never complained. Was at every practice. Was at seemingly every optional he was at. He was a pro about it.
Didn't seem like he had any public problems with it or anything. So, yeah.
Did neither of us mention Korchinski in our 7?
Vlasic, Murphy, Del Mastro.
I know I didn't.
Or Del Mastro, Kaiser, Rinzel. It's 5. Levshinov. Yeah, I mean, unless you're rotating guys like Del Mastro and Kaiser as your 6-7s, because if Korchinski's up here, he's the same as Levshinov. He's to play. There's no use in having him up here if he's just going to sit.
Bring them all up.
I mean, if that's the 7, I'm fine with that, so long as now obviously ice time and roster spots are earned, but you kind of have the mindset that if Levshinov and Korchinski are here, they're playing. So, I don't know. It's there's only so many spots, and as we've kind of been saying with this defensive group over the last year or so, not everyone is going to be a Blackhawk for a long time,
right? And
especially if they bring in a veteran free agent, that's one less roster spot for a young guy, but. I think this organization, if there's anything that we know about them, is that Kyle Davidson and his plan for prospects is you'd rather be late calling them up,
sure,
and playing them.
I agree.
Too early on doing.
But I want to have fun and watch hockey, and I want the fun guys to be there.
I agree. I want no one over 25 on this team. All future, all day.
Yes, 100%.
Real
quick, by the way, someone asked about Trent Frederick in the chat. Is a free agent target? It sounds like he's going back to Edmonton. Elliot Friedman reported that on Monday's 32 Thoughts that it's seemingly like Trent Frederick is destined to remain an Oiler.
Okay.
So
that's fine.
It's a name I don't hate. It's good depth forward, tough guy, checks a lot of boxes, but that better not be the top free agent added, please.
No.
Or player added, I'll say.
Yeah. All right, we got another one here.
Let's do one more here.
From B. Gorius.
Bagorius.
Mailbag question. With the release of the Calder standings, which was won by Lane Hudson for Rookie of the Year, do we think Rinzel makes the list if the sample size was more than 9 games played? He had 5 points in 9 games as a rookie. Moral of the story is the Hawks' defensive depth is insane. Our X-Factor forwards are here to stay. What else can we do to ensure that we secure the supporting forwards for our young decor? Donut re-signed if applicable. I think he means Donato. Big free agent market, a lot of space. Big moves are coming, and I don't think we realize it yet.
All right, so the Rinzel conversation first. If Rinzel played 82 games the way he played those 9, then yes, he would have been the Calder.
He would have been like a 50-point defenseman at that pace.
Right. He would be the Brock Faber to Connor Bedard.
He's going to be in the, if he plays the majority of next season in the NHL, he'll be on that list. I'm not saying he's going to be top 3. Maybe that'd be awesome. But I think if he gets significant time in the league next year, I think he's going to make an imprint in the Rookie of the Year case for sure.
And then the other thing, like, what's the biggest need?
Insulating the young group.
Yeah, you just need you got to find a top 6 forward.
You need guys that elevate those around them.
Yeah.
And I think, last year bringing in Tavo and Bertuzzi, those were top 6 forwards. Good players. They played up to the back of their hockey card, as we've said this offseason. But there needs to be someone that is going to, bring up the floor of everybody else. And those guys, while good players, don't necessarily do that. So that's why, the conversation around Marner and Ehlers and Besser, like, those are guys that I see fitting in Chicago and being able to do that. We'll see if any of those free agents are brought in.
I think a lot about the Martin Havlat acquisition as the Hawks were ascending. And so he was like on that team with like Robert Lang and Tuomo Ruutu and like Yannick Perreault. Like right before Kane and Taves arrived, like Seabrook and Keith are developing. You had some Patrick Sharp had been acquired by that point.
Like
so like there's pieces of the future there. And then Havlat comes in, makes them a little bit better. And then Kane and Taves arrive. They make a team much better.
Brian
it's
Campbell
time to win.
Shows up.
Then they bring in Marian Hossa. And like the rest is history, right? So a Martin Havlat-esque, thank you, Bill. They did trade for Havlat. I think I said acquisition, so I was technically correct. But getting a guy like Martin Havlat.
And they could go that route with a trade this offseason.
And I wonder, too,
doesn't
like,
have to be a free agent.
Is Brock Besser a Martin Havlat? I know they're not the same. I'm not saying like the same player.
But to that level.
But like I would say that's about the same level.
Yeah.
Maybe he's a little better than Havlat because he's healthy.
Well, I mean, Havlat at that time was in his prime and, was looked at as like, oh, like this is pretty much better than anybody that they had.
Well, I think I'm trying to go back to that time, and I'm old.
I would say
he was coming off
fits that mold.
A 18-game season in 05-06. That's why Ottawa moved him. He was not reliable health-wise.
Sure.
Then for the Hawks, played 56, 35, then 81 before going to the Wild and Sharks and Devils.
He also had injuries.
Right.
Yeah.
But had a 77-point season in 08-09 with the Hawks. Like that's...
Well, and there were people that wanted to keep him around at the, detriment of being able to go after a guy like Marian Hossa.
James Naveau.
That's one of them. Yeah.
He owns it.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely, I think there is options out there, whether it's trade or free agency for the Hawks to get somebody like that would come into the group and make a bigger collective impact.
He was also 25 years old when the Hawks traded for him.
And Besser, I think, is 28.
Yeah.
So, we'll see.
I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities.
A lot of stuff going
Let's
on
just
this offseason.
get it going. Can I just be cryogenically frozen till the draft? Can we arrange that?
Just take some of that Chris Farley level NyQuil.
Yeah.
I was going to say, do you want the Ted Williams,
Hibernol.
the Mel Gibson,
I don't know how
or
that came to me.
the
Hibernol.
Hibernol. Yeah, there you go.
To have your wife tape the Super Bowl. All right, we're back tomorrow. Guess who's going to be in these chairs? Alex Vlasic will be here in studio tomorrow, 2 o'clock. Do not miss it. Check out the latest rebuild report at allchgo.com. Hit that like button before you go. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube page as well. Thanks for listening to this episode. Thanks for all the likes. Thanks for all the interaction. Hope you enjoyed Porter Martone. Again, Alex Vlasic tomorrow at 2 o'clock right here on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.